In the shadows whisper your demons lurking in the glow. Ancient voices call our names through the fire and the flames. Demons are real, feel the fear, and whispers dancing your
Up in the sky, what do I see? A UFO is looking at me. Lights flashing all around, bass bumping from the ground. Aliens grooving to the beat. Hip-hop rhythms got them on their feet. Strange beings shaking to the flow. Spaceships rocking to the show. I see a UFO flying high in the night. Moving to the sound, everything's alright. Dancing the stars and neon light. Hop to the beat till the morning light. I see a UFO flying high in the night. Moving to the sound, everything's alright. Dancing in the stars under neon light. Hop to the beat till the morning light. I see a UFO flying high in the night. Moving to the sound, everything's alright. Dancing the stars and neon light. Hop to the beat till the morning light. I'm the god, I rise and shine. In this realm I'm divine. Like the world was just a sign. Feel the power, it's all mine. All mine. Thunder claps, the sky obeys. In my hands lightning plays. Mountains bow, the ocean sway. I command night and day. I'm a god, feel the force. Every star on my course. Follow me, I'm the source. Life itself, no remorse. From the clouds to the ground. In my glory you are found. Eternal life.
Man, that the AI never with the music never ever ceases to amaze me. Good, wonderful, wonderful, fantastic morning. I hope everybody's having a fantastic morning, or if you're listening later, fantastic week, fantastic month, whatever time of day that it happens to be for you. Because time doesn't exist. Because you could listen to me now, and it could be the morning 17 days from now. But because I'm saying I'm having a fantastic morning, well, 17 days from now, you could have a fantastic morning. And it'd be the same fantastic morning that I'm having because you listened to me 17 days from now for the first time. Aha. See, you did not understand where I was going with that train of thought. You were like, what is he fucking talking about? He is going crazy. And I am going crazy today. Man, today is a big day for me personally. I got some IRL shit to do today after the stream, after the podcast. So once we finish recording, finish streaming. Basically just gonna fix it up a little bit and put it on. And by fix it up a little bit, I mean I don't. Y'all know I don't do not edit nothing. I don't edit nothing. I don't plan for a script. I just come up with the topic idea for the day and I keep talking about it for 2 hours ish. And last week, I was in crazy pain at the end of this, and I basically died for the whole entire Saturday afterwards. I literally just like laid around, did nothing because I like died from back pain. But afterwards, whatever. Then Sunday, I had a great day also. Um, and I knew I was teetering on this topic for a long time. I've been teetering on this topic for weeks now, maybe even longer. Probably since the beginning of this, because I was looking at that timeline chart that we have that I showed you guys that I made episodes and episodes ago. Um, we have this timeline chart where I'm out here thinking, when did all of this happen? This is a big part of our show and our discussion and our talk is when did all of this happen that these gods were here? Because we know the gods were here, we believed in them, there's stories of them, we have multiple religions about them, we have multiple mythologies about them, we have multiple historical references and accounts that we're discovering now. Remember, the city of Troy was fought over a demigoddess who's literally the daughter of another demigoddess. And so what are we talking about there? We're talking about genealogical bloodlines, genetics being passed on. These beings who were super strong, had superpowers, had all this shit, had it because they were extraterrestrials. It's similar to almost if you think about Superman. Last week I quoted one of my favorite Superman quotes um, uh, from a World War II propaganda poster that said, Superman said, quote, Superman says you could slap a jump with war bonds and stamps, end quote. And so but it's interesting. I believe in this. Hi, War. Good morning. How are you? Zero eclipse. Zero eclipse. You're a zero eclipse. I get it now. There's no eclipse because there's no sun because there's no light. So we had Superman is a huge thing in our stories. And I just recently listened to a Great History This Week podcast episode where they literally went through the whole evolution and creation of Superman and how it was thing and how it was fought down and put down, and then it all of a sudden became this huge thing almost overnight that he believe that really changed our society and changed the way people believe in things and changed the way that superheroes and beliefs and beliefs in the fantasy world really delved into our society. Remember, before this, if you were some nerdy guy, it was not cool. But to be an adult all of a sudden reading a comic book was not that big a deal anymore. And they even started sending these comic books to the troops because in World War II because they knew that the troops were on. And one of the founders who created Superman literally went to serve in World War II. So the whole thing, it's like society comes all the way around. But what's interesting is Superman is an extraterrestrial. He looks exactly like a human being. If he didn't have these superpowers, he would be a human being and nothing else. But what is the difference? What gives him these powers? It's his genetics. His genetics gives him these powers because his genetics give him the ability to absorb solar radiation better than we humans do, and that radiation is stored into his body to create the super strength, the flight, the laser vision, all of that. In fact, the laser sight is literally just all this power being stored in his body being released. So it's literally, and what's interesting is it's believed that after time and time of working on it with failed ideas, that the idea for Superman came to him in the blink of an eye, in the snap of a fingers, in just a few seconds. It came to him, and and but this delves into our idea of the Akashic record and all the types of things, because I always said that the Akashic record is not something out there, but you got to be in tune with it. What do I mean in tune with it? You got to go out there and be doing the work. You got to put yourself in the pathway of that information in order to gain the information. Nikola Tesla and Einstein, who said that multiple of their equations and ideas came to them from in a dream or in a few states of meditation. Even Steve Jobs said the same thing. In a few moments of meditation, all these ideas came to him. And the thing is I'm going to answer that in a second. And the thing is that they had all these ideas, but they were working on it to begin with. Einstein didn't just, he had the idea, like the fully formed idea come together in a instantaneous vision dream, whatever, but he's been working on it this whole time. So that work that he was doing led him onto the pathway to discovering the stuff. And because that work that he was doing put him in tune with that work and that level of intellectual thought and interest and physical work and practice, led him to make these discoveries and have that vision. If you want to connect to the Akashic record and learn about, telekinesis and whatever, let's say, first you got to do is read books and read different scripts, read about the gods and religions and how they did these sorts of things. And what you find is a lot of times they even explain how they did this. Look in Buddhism, for example. The Buddha, like Eclipse just said, Eclipse said, we all have this power, but we sleep. We don't know how to. We need to meditate and ask the universe to help us remember. You're almost there with it. We don't sleep. We just don't understand how to use it. Think of like a baby, for example. When you're young, you're not only are your legs and your muscles not strong enough to hold your body upright to walk around, but even then you still need to be taught how to walk. Got to put one foot in front of the other. Remember that 1960s Santa Claus cartoon? Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out the door. Remember that shit? Like, bro, like, come on. This is a serious thing, because people literally, yeah, the clown, literally, but it's true though. It's literally true. It's a serious thing. In fact, it's weird because many scientists and ancient astronaut theorists alike have noticed this, because it's very weird. Because look at like a baby deer being born, a cat being born, an animal being born, they can kind of get up and start walking around almost right away. They don't need to be taught. I mean, maybe they have some sort of way to telepathically speak to or signal or some sort of grunt or something that they can do to talk to these people, to their other children or whatever, some sort of inaudible frequency to humans. I have no idea. But basically they get up and start walking pretty quickly. You ever see a cow being born? The mother pretty much gives birth half the time standing up, and then literally the cow comes out and is like sluggish and then gets up and starts walking right away. Yo, what up? Never mind. How you doing? Good morning. We're just like, so the whole thing is that, you know, these ideas don't come from nowhere. But where do they come from? I know we just went through a whole 10-minute tangent. Yeah, I appreciate you, never mind. Appreciate the compliment. They getting a new camera in a few weeks, so that'll be cool. And we're about to rechange this room setup tomorrow. So I appreciate you saying that because I freaking hate the way this room setup is right now. It was different a few weeks ago and I changed it and now I hate it, and we're gonna change it to another different way, and it's actually going to be better because I can put a green screen in behind me and do like a whole other thing, so that'll be dope. And but so they they these today, by the way, never mind, this is Saturday, we record our podcast live, so if you miss any part of it you could join in and just click on the link in the chat. You could scan the code on your screen, whatever you want, and you could listen to the podcast later, listen to any other episodes, whatever else is going on. If you got things to do today, I know it's Saturday. I know people got life to live and things to do, but today I went through a whole 10-minute tangent to talk about how it wasn't a tangent. I'm doing the weave. I'm doing the weave in the topic, all right? It's all about how in these days all these ideas of heroes and superheroes and powers and everything aren't new. Who had these powers before Superman, before Green Lantern, before Thor? The gods. And that's why today's episode is titled Ancient Gods. Alien Gods, I think I titled it. I think I want to retitle it to Ancient Gods. Ancient Gods. And the reason is because these gods literally were all around our world, throughout our society. They came down. Thor's hammer is not a new concept of Marvel made up. It's literally written in the mythology. Somehow, Thor's hammer in Marvel, it says only he could pick it up because only he is worthy, right? Well, take that in from a modern technological perspective, okay? Thor's hammer could just be some sort of weapon that is attuned to his biological imprint, like a handprint or something, and can only be activated or used by the correct handprint. We have things like that today. We have guns that have a trigger safety feature that will only fire the trigger if it recognizes your fingerprint. So, you could do things like that. It's very simple for the technology to be scaled up. Maybe not so simple now from our technological perspective, but think about a society that's 1,000 years more advanced than us, 1,000,000 years more advanced than us. Thinking of something like that might be, as easy as literally lifting my phone up in the air. Like, it may be so simple. for these people. You have to think about what our society would be like 1 million years from now. And not just 1 million years from now, but imagine how, like, let's say that since the year 1900, we've had perfectly recorded history, right? Now imagine the year 3900, 2000 full years later of perfect recorded history. No gaps, no nothing. You have a ruling thing. We know what happened. It was all written down and documented. The documents were compiled and saved and all this stuff. What would your society look like? You would look like a one unified planet. You would look like a one unified planet under one government or conjoining representative government or whatever. And you would look like a planet that has their act together in terms of coordination and unification. What would that do? That would lead to significant scientific advancement. People think that the space race between the Soviet Union and the United States during the Cold War was brought on by competition of our forces competing against each other. Partly true. However, we were working with each other the entire time on scientific projects, on scientific experiments. Even still today, we're still doing it. The only two ways to get to the International Space Station is by Russia or by a NASA contracted SpaceX spaceship. So, a Starship. So literally, it's like we have two options on how to get there. We have no choice but to work with them. So it's if you think that we're not working together behind the scenes, you are so out of tune with the world. We've always been working together behind the scenes. We've literally been doing this for decades. And this is why it was so easy for Kennedy to pick up the phone and call over to the Kremlin and say, "Hey, why are your ships and missiles in Cuba?" So you think that the world is not secretly unified. We're not unified, but we are able to work together even in the face of conflict. That is huge. Now imagine there being no conflict and completely working together. Your only conflict is through political means or whatever, but rebel armies, rebel countries, whatever, that doesn't happen. Eclipse says, but we work for the bad side, not for the one who wants good for this planet. That's true. That's why I'm a dictator and not a capitalist. Because well, we don't technically work for the bad side. See, it's about perception, and people and the way people are using the world and everything, like I just said, if it's easy for us to work together across militaristic hard lines, across I did not know you were like me. Of course we're like me. We got to work together. The whole thing is about understanding each other. My whole thing is about getting down to the truth. And what I want to do is literally get to the truth. I don't care what the truth is. I don't care if the truth is really that they weren't extraterrestrials. They were actually metahumans, that they were mutated human beings who somehow had some sort of mutation going on, and they were able to grow large, and that gave them the appearance of super strength. They were able to they mutated and had some fins, and that made him able to swim in the water, and he had the name of Poseidon, because Poseidon in that ancient tongue meant he who swims with fishes or something like that. And that was lost over time. I'm totally fine if that was the case. But Let's get down to the case, because if that's true, then that means that it's right that we do have all these powers dormant in us. It's just a dormant, mutated part of our genetics. Which means that if we today, with our modern technology, our CRISPR, whatever we could do, we could literally go in and just activate that and I could start flying around. Like, that's what that would mean. Imagine the level of scientific advancement and technology that we would get to, because simply we understood that the ancient gods were not gods and were not extraterrestrials, they were mutated humans. What if that was the case? What if they weren't mutated humans, but they were a mutated version of another hominid? For example, remember when we were talking about how they literally were multiple hominids on the planet, and at one point many of them were coexisting. In fact, at different points multiple ones coexisted in different places on the earth, and they eventually killed each other or commingled with each other, or both, probably both. And the same thing happened with humans until eventually we humans are the only ones left. What if these demigods were not who these polytheistic gods who ruled over the world at one point, or parts of the world at one point, were just mutated humans who grew large and had extra strength and did all this stuff, and they were a different line of hominid that mutated or did something like that, and then they mated with Homo sapien hominids. And these then produced eventually our modern Homo sapien people. And these, because we have studies in our genetics that we have what's called missing link DNA, where we can tell that this DNA, it comes similar from other hominids, like how we had hominids. You had a dream about what? Tell me. Uh, uh, like how other hominids existed on this planet, these other hominids could have mutated, like how we know in our DNA that we have bits and pieces of other different hominids, like the Neanderthals, like the Denisovans, and on and on. There's blank DNA that we haven't been able to identify as belonging to another hominid. Now, because we don't know what that hominid is, some ancient astronaut theorists have said, well, that's an ancient alien. Those are the alien gods who were here, the quote unquote Nephilim, the fallen angels in the Bible, who came down and mated with humans to create their children, and who were giants and everything. Like, what you're literally talking about is genetic mutation and mingling and DNA combining and all these things. And now you wonder, where are the gods? Well, you read the stories, the gods became destructive. They became erratic in their own power. And there were millions of humans on the planet. It's like how people are comparing 100 gorillas right now versus one human, or 100 humans versus one gorilla. Doesn't matter how strong you are, eventually the numbers will overwhelm you. Think about how many ants it could take. The ants could pick me up, and it would take a lot of ants, but they could do it. And so, it's like, it's not impossible or implausible. But who were these ancient gods? Let's explore the idea for a minute that these ancient gods really were extraterrestrials. Let's explore it for the moment. See, I was looking at the timeline, and we were at a point where we were talking about the rebellion in heaven and earth from the perspective of extraterrestrials. The rebellion in heaven and earth, and according to Zachariah Sitchin, was just a group of people who mutinied. In fact, there was more than one rebellion. The first rebellion, according to Zachariah Sitchin's translation of the Sumerian tablets, was a short lived rebellion that resulted in the creation of a worker force humans. See, these gods right away did the work. They started working, and then they said, "We don't want to work. We had enough of this." So they rebelled. And when they rebelled against the gods and against everything, the overseeing government said, "Well, why don't you just tell us your problems?" And they're, "Well, we got to wear these crazy oxygen masks because we don't breathe the same atmosphere. And then we got to carry these big, heavy pickaxes because we got to get these diamonds out of the thing. And it's really hard to do in this suit to protect me. So why don't we, create like something to do the work for us, like some sort of technology?" And they go, "Well, we don't really have the parts here on this primitive planet to make a bunch of robots. So I don't know what you want to do about it." Right? And we don't have the refined metals and the steels and the ability to smelt metals and stuff and everything yet. What do you want me to do about it? And they're like, "Well, on the spaceship, we have a genetics laboratory because because we a lot of us get injured and we need to heal our people. So why don't we do something about that?" And then somebody stands up. In this case of the story, it happens to be the god Enki. And Enki is who is the Greek version is Prometheus, the one who brings fire to man, who brings knowledge to man. He stands up and says, "Hey, guess what? I was out there on my hunting expedition, last week, and I discovered that our traps were being messed with, and it looked like it was being done by some intelligent being." And he said, "Well, why don't," and then I stood there and I set up a trap for him and we found the guy. He's like a being, but he's a wild man, very hairy, has doesn't really speak and act in a civilized manner, more like an ape. But maybe we could use that genetics laboratory and make a new version. We'll go down there, capture a couple of them, mess with their genetics, make a new being who's able to survive on this planet and live and do the work for us without having to wear all these oxygen masks and these suits and these everythings. And it'd be easy for them to lift the pickaxes because their sense of gravity is normal for this planet. Blah, 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 blah. And it keeps on going, and everybody says, "Great." That's the first rebellion. But then later there becomes another rebellion. Later on, see, in the beginning, human beings worshipped the sun. They worshipped the sun because it was the source of light and warmth in our primitive days. Then, for some reason, we began worshiping a creator, a single creator. Who was this single creator? Well, it was the leader of the alien government, the extraterrestrial gods who came here and came down. He was the leader of them and they said, "You're the leader, you're the creator, you're the supreme one. You're the one who commands all these other gods, these angels, these whatever they are. You're the creator. You are God. We will worship you." Then we switched all of a sudden to polytheism and snake worship. See, first it was actually snake worship before the polytheism. And why is that? Not everybody believed in snake worship, but maybe what we're looking at is the seeds of rebellion in the idea of worshiping the serpent. And the serpent in this case is Enki. Enki is Lucifer. Enki is the serpent. And the reason why is because he was the leader here on the world before Enlil came about. So his brother, his half brother, who was the heir apparent to the god's throne, the alien throne that we talked about in many episodes. The problem is Enki is so used to being in control that when Enlil comes in, he doesn't want to cede power and authority. And worse off, the people that they created didn't want to switch their beliefs. They had already begun worshiping Enki as the supreme god, and suddenly there's another more supreme god? That doesn't make sense. So at the same time, really, we have the introduction of polytheism and snake worship. Because the snake worship, the symbol of Enki literally started building his own support, his own force, his own people. And so you worship him because you're worshiping the God who created you. You're worshiping the first one in their beliefs. But then, so this becomes some sort of thing, and then as it becomes known to the public, they begin to condemn it, and snake worship becomes a bad thing. And in its favor rises polytheism, where we have multiple gods and multiple beliefs and multiple positionings of the gods. We have the 12 leaders of the pantheon. We have of the gods. We have all these different aspects, and each god comes with a retinue of their own lesser gods. They do the same exact thing. And so each time we begin to worship these gods, the gods end up trying to claim that the other one is more supreme. For example, we spoke about how in the past, Enki's entire claim on the throne is, in fact, legitimate. He is the firstborn son to the supreme god Anu. However, he's basically the firstborn son with his Gumara, his consort, his woman on the side. So he might be the firstborn son, but he's not the firstborn son of the recognized queen, the recognized ruler, the wife of the king. And according to these gods' customs, they could have more than one wife, they could have more than one consort, more than one woman, and they could have children by more than one of these women's. But the heir to their throne, their wealth, their power, whatever the case may be, whether you're a king or not, whether you're just a common landowner or not, your heir is the one who is brought about between the union of you and your half sister. And this is why Enlil is in fact the one who becomes the heir apparent. And the reason is because Enlil is born of Anu. He's second born, but he's born of Anu and the actual queen, who is the half sister of Anu, and that's his mother. And that is why he becomes the heir apparent, because he is the product of the union of the father and the half sister. Now, what's interesting, why would they do this? For example, we know that we humans don't really need to do anything like that. In fact, it's not evolutionarily beneficial to our people to have a union between uh, people who are so closely related. It's not beneficial at all for our genetics. In fact, we end up having more mutations because of it. So, why would the gods do this? Maybe because they're extraterrestrials. Maybe they're able to have like pass on their genetics better by having that sort of union. You know, maybe their genes are passed on because they you know their union with their half sister or whatever gives them like 3/4 of their their genetic lineage gets passed down to the thing, and so they become more similar to them. It's like almost like a von Neumann probe where they're able to um, create a being that's almost 100% similar to them, but not exactly. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Hold on. Sip of water is more like a chug. I could like hear my throat drying. Oh my god, I could hear like the raspiness. Um, so these eclipse, are you gonna tell me your dream? You can't just say I had a dream and then not tell me about it. I mean, they the the I write. Oh, okay. Um, it's a long dream. The so these gods, they maybe they had some sort of genetic way. I wrote they have some sort of genetic way to pass on their genes better or something by the union of their half sister or whatever. And what's interesting is we made the comparative note that Abraham in the Bible is his wife Sarah is actually his half sister. And this is why Isaac becomes the heir over his older half brother Ishmael, because Isaac is born of the union of Abraham and his half sister Sarah. And this is tradition for them because they come out of Sumeria and the capital city of which is where the Anunnaki gods were from, which is where Enki and Enlil were worshipped, and they were the brothers of the half sisters. So it's literally you could see how it goes down the line of passing on the lineage and passing on the beliefs and the worship of the gods. You could see how the comparison begins to go down the line from gods to humans, and we worship these gods. And and um I'm reading Eclipse's thing. Yeah, but see, what's so interesting, designed to live on the result of that's how we came to be, and they had to create new ones to survive. So you basically had an alternative dream of the Anunnaki based on your own perspective. Your grandfather is now on another planet. I could imagine like old Italian grandfather sitting there like, come on, I'm on the planet and the soil is not so good. It's like I'm on this planet over here and the soil is not so good for my olive oil. I don't understand. I tried to grow the wine, but the vino is not so good. I can totally see that. That's so freaking funny, bro. Oh my god. Like just imagine like just imagine some old Italian guy trying to like plant some like olive oil and wine on on another planet, like and like oh the wine is not so good. Yeah. That shit is so funny, bro. Imagine that. Oh my god. But like literally, yes. Like that's exactly right. Like it's literally like that's exactly what it would be though. And you know, now I remembered what I wanted to talk about. Now I remembered, hold on, I gotta write this down so I don't forget it a second time. Because it was what I wanted to talk about originally today, but I forgot what it was because the curse of not writing down scripts. Uh and I decided that I'm changing the title from Alien Gods to Ancient Gods today. So you know these so we've gotten um really deep into some of the lore right now, but the extraterrestrials who came here, we got to remember we're talking about creatures who are thousands of years more advanced than us, thousands, maybe even millions of years more advanced than us. This stuff is easy to them. It's easy to create new genetic beings in a laboratory. It's even easy for them to alter their own genetics. It's easy for them to do everything. But somehow you read in these stories that they have some sort of morals. They can't do everything. Their morals are different than ours, of course, especially in our modern day. He said, your grandfather in your dream said we need to take care of our planet because it is really important and our creators love us so much. Do they, though? Do the creators really love us that much? Answer that for me. Because if they really did, why would they try to wipe us out multiple times? Do they really, though? I don't know. Maybe the original ones do. But what happened to the gods? Oh, I just realized we are flying through the time today. Let's keep on going. So the they ended up having to deal with, you know, a rebellion amongst themselves because the gods ended up, you know, they didn't like the way that the government was being run here on this planet. Imagine this planet being like the 13 colonies. You know, they feel just like the British felt that they own this land. It's us. This is our property now. This is our colony. This is our territory. This is our planet. We've been here. And now you, a foreigner who came in and doesn't live here, has no idea what's going on here, doesn't know the intricacies of the planet, the politics, whatever, and you want to make your rules and your things based on your perception and lack of information. You want to impose your taxes on people who didn't do the work or don't have the money in the first place, just like the king did in England. And so they rebelled, just like we did here in the Americas. They didn't like the government, so Enki decides he's going to rebel. Says, hey, I'm the original one here. Creating these beings that you want to rule over was my freaking idea. I'm the one who discovered these original hominids that were natural to this planet in the first place. I'm the one who carried out the experiments. I should be worshipped as the original God. And so what happened? The other people said, yeah, we agree with you, Enki. We're going to join your side. and they grew into a military force. This military force grew into something so incredible and strong enough to take on the expeditionary force that was here with Enlil and his troops. And it says that the war only ended because the great god Anu finally died. And Enlil was called home as the heir apparent to take his place. So remember, these gods lived for thousands of years, but yet right there in the story, they eventually could die of natural old age. And Enlil was the heir. So he gets called back home, and then the civil war stops. Well, who's left to be here to rule over the earth? Enki. So the gods left, and remember, according to Zechariah Sitchin's translations, the gods could only be here for a short period of time because while they were more advanced than us, they didn't have the technology to travel such a distance. They could only travel here to the earth when their planet got to a specific closeness. And then once that window was gone, they were either stuck here on the planet or they had to go back to their planet before the window of opportunity left them. So once Enlil had to go back, that was it. He had to go back and they weren't coming back. But obviously, Enki knew that the gods, the Anunnaki, would eventually return. He knew this. Enlil knew this. Everybody knew this. The original symbol of the cross was not for Christianity and for Jesus. It was for the Anunnaki, because their planet was called the planet of the crossing, because it crossed across multiple orbits of other planets, including the Earth. So this was the planet of the crossing, and they literally used the cross as the symbol. This is why Christianity is accused of just taking, different religious worships and bringing it all together into one. Because they take many different things, just like Christmas was originally a pagan holiday. So to worship the season changes and the harvest. So these gods were then here. They were then stuck here. And they stayed and ruled over the earth as literal gods. They ruled over and they stayed here, and they had names like Thor and Odin and Kukulkan and Quetzalcoatl and Shiva and Rama and Kali and Amaterasu and the Yellow Emperor and on and on and on and on. Zeus, they kept on going. The names were there, but they were all the same. They always had the 12 pantheon of gods. They always had the gods who ruled over as the divine council of 12. Why 12? There are many different conspiracies on that and theories on it, and we'll go over them eventually. But these gods literally were beings who ruled over here for thousands of years with a militaristic iron fist. And why did they do this? Because when you leave your planet, our planet, for the first time, when we leave our planet for the first time, who's going to go out first? I'm not going out first. Not because I don't want to be the first. I definitely want to be the first. But because that's not how it's done. It's the military who goes out first. People who came here to the Americas, they were the military. Christopher Columbus, all his people on his ships, they were soldiers. Not everybody, but A lot of them were soldiers or trained in some way, and then they had the blessing of the crown and the military. They had military type weapons on their ships. It's the same thing you're going to do. And look at it now. We're already in the process of sending our military out there first. You know why? Because we now have the Space Force here in the United States. And I'm sure other countries have already followed suit, if not, are on their way to do so. We literally are sending our military out into space. And you think that NASA wasn't the first ones? Most of those guys were military pilots or recruited from the military or did some sort of thing for the military and for the government in a whole. So it wasn't just out of nowhere that these people got picked to be astronauts, to be they had this military type experience, this government type experience. This wasn't no whatever. So this wasn't no just random, jolt across the sea. So, these beings literally were a military who came here first. It's the same thing. They probably have their scientists, they probably had their engineers, their garbage men, their whatever, they needed to have to survive, their chefs, their cooks, all of that, maid service, laundry people, to keep the military uniforms pristine, whatever the case may be. They needed to have it, and they needed to bring it all on their one or two ships because they knew that they weren't going back home for another, 100 years or whatever. So they knew they were going out for a long time. So they would be the military. So all these guys are right away a capable military force. These ancient gods were a capable military force. They did the exact same thing. They colonized this planet in their way, shape, or form, and they colonized the planet with a military. Same thing that we're going to do. We're going to do the same exact thing that we did with the colonies, that they did with us. Send out the military, and then the people. That's how we're going to do it. It's the same thing that they did. So when the time for rebellion came, the military was already here. Their army supporters were already here. They didn't need to, go and wait for the army to come to do all these things. The military was with them, or at least a branch or two were, a division or two were. Who knows how many? But in fact, there are some texts that say that when the first gods originally descended upon Mount Hermon, that 1,001 gods descended. So what does that mean? That means that there was probably one guy who was the supreme commander, and then there was 1,000 other troops that came with them. That's what that really means. That 1,001 troops came out of that ship, and one of those 1,001 people was their commanding officer, was their general, was their whatever leader. So it's not like it's totally unheard of and weird. This is exactly what would happen. And you think that Enlil, when he would come, that he didn't bring a second military force, and some of those people sided with Enki, his brother, and tried to fight, against Enlil? Of course they did. There were probably people on the side of Enki who switched sides as well. You don't understand these things because you don't understand that it's from a military perspective. Once you realize that all these happenings of the gods were from a militaristic government political perspective, it makes so much more sense. Because you realize that this isn't just out of the pocket, out of nowhere, out of the blue. There's a reason that they're doing all these types of things. They needed whatever they needed from this planet, and they were getting resources from asteroids and comets, and then they needed more mineral minerals that were found on this planet, or whatever, or maybe they just grew out their space and needed another planet to colonize, and this was the closest one, or maybe they did Mars and this planet, and something else happened on Mars and they had to leave there. Who knows? Who really knows? But what we do know is that these beings were definitely some sort of extraterrestrial. They were definitely not Homo sapien humans. They were some sort of creator being that did some work with scientific advanced knowledge and continued fighting along. What's interesting is in the stories of the gods who came here and ruled over the earth after the rebellion, is the rebels, as every rebellion, it's not perfect. The rebels literally came here, and if you read, like, for example, in the Titanomachy, after Zeus and his people won, Zeus became like this mad monarchical dictator, and even the other gods rebelled against him. Like, right away, there's another rebellion inside the rebellion. And only Zeus survived as the commander because he struck a deal with them. And this is how you get the development of the pantheon of gods. It's not just the one god anymore, the supreme ruler, Enki, Zeus, Odin. You have the pantheon because they're powerful too. They're the god, they're a god in their own right. They have rights, unlike these colony people that we've basically kept as pets this whole time, sheltered in their wonderful little homes. So the world is not so clear cut, and even these beliefs and these ancient gods are not so clear cut. So when we talk about um the the gods living here on the earth, we're talking about a military force running the planet as a dictatorship. What's interesting is that you even hear in some of the stories that the next time the gods came back, meaning the next time Nibiru, the planet of the crossing, came close enough for the gods to come over, they brought a military force. And this is where you get in the stories of the two military forces fighting amongst each other and using humans as a means for the gods to fight amongst each other, because they use the support of their humans to fight each other to see who's going to fight thing what about him? I don't understand your comment and the question mark. um so these divine lords, these gods, you know they they wanted to run the world as a militaristic colonized outpost. And as running the outpost, they literally just um they just ruled over everything. So when these gods came back and they were fighting them, they all fought amongst each other and continued to fight. And they fought with they used humans, they used gods in battles with humans. No, I don't understand what your question is. What's the question? Are you trying to say that Trump is an extraterrestrial god? I don't. Who's being a military dictator? I don't understand. Um, is that what you're trying to say? I don't. I don't understand what you're saying. Um, so is these wait, we gotta keep going. We gotta keep going. The what's going on is you end up having these multi-year periods where you have different gods ruling over each other and ruling over issuing different orders and edicts and everything happening. But how long were they here for? And when did they stop being here? Yes, the military dictator, he's not a military dictator. He may be, doing things that are beyond the line or whatever, but trust me, that's not what a military dictatorship looks like. Military dictatorship, think Nazi Germany, think what's happening in Myanmar right now, think fascist Mussolini, like that's military dictatorships. Think Alexander the Great, Octavian Augustus Caesar. I mean, those are military dictatorships. This is not a military dictatorship. Just because you're fringing the line doesn't make you a dictator. But I am definitely a dictator. That's for sure. I am all for dictatorial powers, but if it's me in charge, for other people, we can, you know, um, they need a council. Me, I don't need no council. All right, I'm an immortal deity. I don't need no counsel. But them, they need a counsel. Me, no counsel. so, so, the yeah, but okay. She just goes okay, okay. No, but it's true though. I mean, it's you gotta think like in terms of those aspects of what real dictatorship is like. Um, even think of like the true stories of think of the true stories of you are Italian, we are dictator. Oh, I'm total dictator. I'm literally total dictator. No joke there. I am all for uh I think we fucked up by having this fucking nonsense democracy. I mean, we are just as bickering with each other as we were 250 years ago, if not more so. And I was there, believe me. So I know how bickering we are, and it's nothing's changed. We're not able to fund our people. We're not able to fund our military and our government. We're not able to get an adequate supply of troops. We're not funding our taxes very well. We're barely even collecting the proper amount of taxes. We're racking up massive amount of debt. I mean, it sounds like the same exact thing that happened 250 years ago as it is now. So, like they say, and like I repeat all the time, history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure as hell rhymes, man. I mean, it's really funny. Um, but you know, so uh, these these we really and if you think about it too, I mean, oligarchy and councils don't work. I mean, that was the whole, this is why we hate Julius Caesar today, is because he hated this democracy shit. And why did he hate it? Because all they did was bicker. 2,000 years ago, all they did was sit there and bicker and nothing got fucking done. Nothing. They literally say, "Oh, me too, Eclipse. Yo, Eclipse says I'm tired of living on this planet. To be honest, me too. I just want to go home. I just want to go back to my planet." Um, but you know, but but seriously though, same. But 2,000 years ago, the whole reason Julius Caesar rebelled and got rid of the Republic was because all they did was bicker and do nothing. And literally, so today in our modern society, we have villainized Julius Caesar because he represented the opposite of democracy and having representation in our government. That's wrong. Rome was not a representative democracy. It was literally an oligarchy. They literally were the Senate was is just Senate is just a name for a group of people who gather together and have a discussion about rules. That's literally all it is. The Senate in ancient Rome consisted of and only of the nobility, the ultra rich, the military commanders, and you had to be born in your position to get it. So it was literally passed down from father to son. What does that sound like? That sounds literally like a kingdom. So literally ancient Rome before the empire was literally 30 kings or hundreds of kings, because there were hundreds of senators, there were hundreds of kings literally just passing down their position and seat to their heir and literally just ruling over each other. You think one king is a problem like we had in America with King George? Imagine hundreds of them in a room sitting there trying to talk to each other. Nothing would get done, and nothing did get done, and we didn't even learn from that mistake years later. And you would think that having the people rebel against the Senate who killed Julius Caesar because they loved him so much, it caused a 20-year civil war. You're talking about people who were impoverished. 90% of the people were living on in a welfare state. They were living on welfare, and they had slaves in their home, and they're living on welfare, and their slaves are being lived on welfare, and everything was going on. Everybody's living at the hands of the government. You're literally living at the hands of food stamps by your government, 90% of your population. And so, like, what? And those are just the citizens you count. Those are just the citizens. Because every citizen in ancient Rome wanted to have that nobility status where they didn't have to work all day. You could just live the life of lap of luxury and do all these things. But that's not in reality. And that's why even poor people could have slaves, because they literally just, if you were born into Roman civilized society, you didn't want to do shit all day. You just wanted to have your slaves and chill around. And that's why you literally had all these stories of everybody fucking their sister and their cousin and getting drunk all day and having slaves and conquering things and going, well, they had nothing else to do. There were literally billions of other things that they could do with their life. And they chose to want to do nothing. And Julius, and then they were tired of it. They were actually tired of doing nothing. The people actually wanted to work and have a wage and make money and have a purpose to their life. Shocking. I know people wanted to have a purpose to their life. I know, so shocking, right? And so Julius Caesar gave that to them. He cut back on government funded things while funding the good ones. He funded public works projects and new aqueducts and all these things, and he funded it by taking away money from the ultra wealthy who had suppressed the people to begin with. And the people loved this. They loved it. They loved all that shit. And then, well, guess what? The Senate didn't love it. Why? Because he was taking away their money and their life of luxury. He was literally taking it all away from them, and they literally sat there and were like, "Nah, fuck this guy. He's taking away my money. Stab him. Done." Like, but and then 20 years of civil war go by to where Octavian, who's literally like 12 years old when at this time, has to literally grow up, all of a sudden become a man at like 14, and then start leading a military campaign all the way to take back his city and his country, because it was his, because his father, I mean his adopted father, who was really his uncle, was the emperor, the dictator. 2,000 years later, we're doing the same fucking shit. It is blows my mind. It makes me so mad. I literally hate it because it's literally nonsense. And then the same thing happened during the revolution. Read George Washington's accounts, letters to Congress, all these things. All he talks about is how his troops have no shoes. They're lacking in shoes. Their shoes are falling apart. Their clothes are falling apart. We got no fucking food. We got no anything. And it's just letters and letters and letters on this. And he just writes them all day to Congress. And George Washington has to deal with multiple mutinies on his hands from his troops because they got no shoes, they got no food, they're not getting paid, they got nothing. And literally because and Congress ain't doing shit because all they do is bicker all day about the ideals of liberty and what we should do and all this nonsense that really only applied to fucking that really only applied to half of their population because the other half of the population was enslaved people. Like it literally was totally ridiculous. So it was the same exact thing as ancient Rome. The same thing of ancient Rome. You were only a citizen and could only vote if you were born like in like the confines of the original Roman city and you were a descendant of those people. But if you were born like in the northern parts of Italy, even though you're on the mainland peninsula of Italy, you're literally not a Roman citizen because you're not from the original bloodlines or born in the city. So then you people figured that out and started crowding the cities because they would get all these things and they would prove that they were a citizen and then they would get all these benefits from the government, slaves, free food, free money, free everything, and they would sit there for whatever. It was literally so fucking stupid, and we're doing the same thing today. We're doing the same thing today, except I'll tell you this: the one difference from then and today, nobody wants to work today. Nobody wants to work today. I want to work. I love working. What the fuck else am I going to do with my life all day? I'm going to sit around, fucking twiddle my thumbs, fucking play with myself, play with you, play with everything. Like, come on, dude. I can only play video games for so long, bro. Like, I got to start doing other things. This is why I do so many different things. This is why I stream play video games. This is why I do a podcast. This is why I'm writing books and I write like short stories, not published yet, but we'll get there. And this is why I'm doing things because I don't like to do nothing. What is wrong with you people? You just want to sit around and do nothing and lay in bed all day? I fucking hate that shit, bro. I hate that shit. That fucking pisses me off when you're like, oh, I don't want to do nothing. It's like 9 o'clock at night and I got up at 12 and now I'm tired. Like, bro, I literally get like a maximum of between 4 and 6 hours of sleep every fucking day, and that's it. That's all I get and that's all I want to get because I literally like I want to work. I want to do things with my life. I don't want to waste myself and my life and my purpose and whatever. I don't want to do any of that. That seems so ridiculous to me. And the people 2,000 years ago thought the same. They wanted to work. All this luxury and handouts and everything turns out wasn't working for them. It wasn't the ideal way that they wanted to live life. They wanted to have a purpose. People wanted to see life and see that their purpose in action. And yet, the rich didn't want that. They just wanted to make their money off their trade. Yet today, we have a different problem. We have the exact opposite of the problem. What we're starting to notice through statistics, and I just listened to this the other day, is well, the other day for me being an immortal, the other day for you human mortals was probably 2 months ago, maybe, plus or minus like 2 weeks. So, a month and a half to 2 months, 2.5 months ago, this was, and I was listening to these people talk about these politics and That's not true. That's not true. People want to work, but they want to be free not to work under someone, and that's okay. Why I need to work for someone who treats you like a piece of shit? True, but the problem is you don't have to treat people like a piece of shit to work under somebody, and it doesn't mean and that and people want to work. They want to be free. That's not true according to the data. People don't want to work. In fact, you're in Italy. How are you saying that? You're literally in Italy, and Italy right now is one of the biggest countries, especially in the modern world, that has the problem with employment. I mean, you literally have a term for men who don't want to work, and it's called a mamoni. I mean, come on. Like, literally, how are you saying that? That's literally the opposite of what's going on in your country right now. You literally have people who don't want to work at all. They don't want to do nothing. It's literally a huge problem in your country. And then in our country we have people who have a problem of where you don't want to actually work because all you want to do is just take your money and keep investing it with like little returns, so all you do is get like dividend payments and all that other stuff, and you don't get like anything. You get like the size things. I thought you lived in Italy. What are you talking about? uh uh you live in the Netherlands. Word. Well, either way, the Italy, they don't fucking have, they have that problem. So whatever. You know what's mad funny is I have a friend who lives in the Netherlands. Well, he's from the Netherlands. He lives in London now. But it was so funny. The first time he told me he lived in the Netherlands, this was like, I don't know, uh over 10 years ago. And I was like, oh yeah, isn't it cold up there in the north? Like I thought, like I read I heard him say Netherlands, and my brain went Norway. So fucking stupid I am. And I was like, isn't it cold up there in the north? And I was like, oh wait, you said Netherlands, not North. Oh, I'm fucking dumb. Like Uh, that's also true. You don't get paid. That's another problem. That's another problem. It's not the only problem. See, the problem is that's not the only problem, and it's not one problem in that country, and it's not one problem in this country. Data in this country shows that that we don't want to work. We'd rather, and all the people who the smart of you, um, the all the but it's not that the people who want to work, but we have a huge unemployment rate on right now, right? Unemployed rate. However, job openings are at an all-time high. There are tons of jobs out there, but we can't find the people to fill them. So the data is showing that all the people who want to work are employed right now. And all the people who don't want to work are not employed right now. That's what the data is showing in this country. So, you could go there, but it's debatable, but still. Anyway, we got on a massive tangent to go back from the ancient gods and their rule on the earth. And you got to remember too is they still believed in the polytheistic gods. Remember, we're talking about Italy and Greece, the heart of the Western Rome world of the polytheistic gods. And so, even because even there were more stories and depictions and temples of the gods than in any other place. Even looking at England with Stonehenge and Ireland with their menhirs and all these things. Um, uh, that's another problem in Italy too. Old people treat you poorly. Yeah, but it's the same thing here. Like you have no idea. Like it's a problem with. It's not just a problem in that country. It's a problem with um the older generation. There's something going on where they think that they're better than everybody else because of whatever they went through without realizing that everybody goes through the same thing at one point in life or their other, struggling for income, working hard, addiction to drugs. I mean, drug addictions is not new. I mean, everybody knows that. Or if you don't know, in the early 1900s, um, the king and queen of Russia, Alexander and Alexandria, especially Alexandria, Tsarina Alexandria, was a huge pill popper. Huge pill popper. Okay, so they had that shit back then. They had that shit in the 1800s too. Like, even Hitler was on so many drugs by the end of the war. I mean, it's really bad. I mean, the world and yet you think that it's not as bad as you had it or whatever. I mean, but it's also not as bad as the depression either. And none of you were alive during the depression. Almost nobody is alive today from World War II, and yet you treat us younger generation like you lived through the depression, World War II, World War One, the Civil War, and all of them together. And it's something going on where our generation, and I've determined it's really anybody who's like 56 and older, which would be, what year would that be from now? 56, that would be uh anybody born before 1984. So like, or is that 46? That's four, I don't know, whatever. So basically, if you're born before that time, you fall into this category of like literally just hating people who are younger than you specifically because they're younger than you. Like, what happened, bro? You hate your life that much? You fucking didn't succeed as much as you thought? Oh, well, poor you. You fucking crybaby. Like, are you serious? And I mean that seriously. Like I literally, and I deal with this in my own life all the time. That's why I'm getting animated with what Eclipse said, because it's so true. And it's literally deal with this all the time. Like, what's the matter, bro? Oh, you're not as young as you once were, so you're sad about that. So you got to treat me like shit. You got to, you're not as successful as you thought you'd be. So, but you still worked hard in your life. So that means that nobody else can work hard because you worked hard. Like, people are so fucking rude and self-centered and evil that it's beyond my, it makes me so mad. Like, the literally one of the few things that make me really mad is inconsideration of other people. Like, because I'll always be out there considering how other people feel, so why does that make me special? It doesn't. It should be the norm. And but yet apparently it makes me fucking special. I am so special because I treat you like a normal human being. Oh, divine. You see my halo above my head? I am divine. Wait, what if I position my head like with the light right there? You see the little glow above my head? Oh, I'm divine now. I'm divine. Like what do you mean, bro? That's fucking life. Everybody literally lives life and survives. Like do you think I'm as successful as I thought I'd be? Fuck no. Do you think like I'm like anything? Is there many reasons for multiple things? Of course there is. But like, dude, like, come on. Like, everybody lives life and learns and grows. Once you get out of your parents' house, that's it, bro. Your money is your money, and it's nice if they give you some money, but like that's it for you. If your parents keep paying for your cell phone, good for you. Use that as long as you can because cell phone bills are really fucking annoying. Internet bills really fucking annoying. Everything's annoying, pretty much. So, like, it's just it's so ridiculous to me. And but you know what? You know what's interesting is that's kind of like how these ancient gods treated the first humans. You like how we just did the weave? You see what I'm talking about? Like, we that's how they treated the humans. Like you were less than. Like you weren't even like a puppy or a kitty cat. My puppy or my kitty cat gets treated better than they treated us, than these humans, than these older humans treat our younger humans today. They treated people like shit, used them and abused them. You hear all these stories. Think about the Greek stories, for example. The god is standing there and he sees some poor woman, a human woman, bathing in a stream because they don't have running water, they don't have electricity, they're living in mud huts and caves and all this shit. And he won't goes down and he's like, nice ass. I mean, hit that. And it's like, and then he goes and lures them in using some sort of power. It sounds like rape to me, bro. Like, I'm sorry to say it, but it really does. I mean, like, like, what about those stories of when, of Zeus turned himself into a swan and had sex with Leda, and that created a demigod son? Or what about when Zeus turned into a golden rain shower, and then the woman all of a sudden became pregnant? I'll tell you what he did. He fucking used some sort of drug to obscure her memory, so all she remembers is like some gold sparkling light, and suddenly she's pregnant by somebody who she didn't know and didn't consent to. I mean, that's all the fucking stories are. All of them are like that. There's like two stories in the whole entire fucking mythological circumstance around the world where a human actually wanted to be with and impregnated by one of these gods. Like literally like one or two stories. I know of one story in the Greek myth, and I'm pretty sure there's one story in Japan. That's it. I don't even remember what the story in Japan was. That's literally it. I've never ever ever heard of a single other story where a human being was even given the option to have sex with one of these gods. It was just taken. And it says right there in the story, Zeus saw Leda and took her upon him. What a PG way to say that he raped her. So I mean, they literally think of these people, these hominids, as being worse than animals. They treated them as nothing, as worse than animals. I don't know. How do you treat somebody worse than a slave? But maybe that was it. I mean, because you're a slave who doesn't even know you're a slave. That's the thing. That's even worse about it. You have this uh uh semblance of free will when it's really just an illusion. You have this illusion that you're free on this planet and you're free to do things, and that your offering of items and gold and whatever to the gods is of your free will because you worship them. But that's the illusion. It's not your free will. They created you for that purpose and messed with your mind and brainwashed you to think that they were divine beings who are deserving of your worship and self deprecation in order to get whatever they want out of you. That might be your body. That might be the gold in the mine down under the ground that's real hot and stinky and dirty, and they don't want to get their hands dirty doing it. I mean, that's literally what was happening at this time. That's literally what these gods were doing at this time. Is they literally were sitting there going, "What do we want to do? Nothing. What do you want to do? Nothing. Well, I need this done. Well, let's go make those human slaves do it because yeah, we need it done, but none of us want to do it." Same thing. The same thing all the time. Even in ancient Rome, the senators who used to go to war, only a few of them before Julius Caesar actually went out to war. We have those what was the one? The guy who I'm forgetting the name of the general who went out and actually was the one who defeated Spartacus because he was an actual senator and a military general. Before that, what they would do is they would go out and they would, you know, raise an army and then put a guy in charge of it. They would find some guy that they kind of trusted, mostly bribed, to put in charge of that army and train them. And the thing is before this time, before Spartacus, they really only had a uh the army term limits were like 1 year for per person, you know, and so you could go out for a battle, and you know, if it takes you 2 months to march there and 2 months to march back, well, you only got 8 months for the rest of the year. And so, you know, you got to get that entire war over in that time. Otherwise, after the 1 year is over, your troops are allowed to just get up and leave because they're no longer obligated to stay there because they didn't have a fully fledged, fully trained military force that we know of. And in fact, the rebellion with Spartacus was not the first one, but it was one of the last and the last biggest one because they realized then that they can't just depend on these ragtag guys, not even in their own homeland. They realized that they needed to have a fully trained, fully militaristic force that's ready to go on a dime, on a whim, right out the door and take care of the problem. That's what they needed. And they needed that. And just before, you know, a little while before Julius Caesar was born, they started doing this. And this is the world that Julius Caesar comes into, a fully modernized for that time, military. And so, you know, you have these ancient gods are all doing the same thing, you know, and they literally are, but they did the opposite. They came here with the fully advanced military and got lazy. They came here with an advanced military and was like, well, we're going to use the humans to fight some of these battles for us. And they used the humans to fight a lot of these battles for them because they didn't want to even do the fighting. They got so lazy that they didn't even want to do the fighting. And so these gods were just ruling over as dictators, living in their life of luxury when they're really just extraterrestrials, stealing the wealth from the planet and from the people. And so by the time that the planet of the crossing comes around now for a third time, so remember, we said they were here, there was a rebellion, and they had to leave. Then the planet comes by again, and the ones who rebelled are able to fight them off again. Now they come back around for the third time. They come in here and are easily able to wipe out the gods. Why? Because they grew lazy, they grew fat, they grew wealthy and unimpoverished and you know, like just super luxuriously lazy. I mean, you know, so by the time they got here, there was no army to fight against. There was no people there was no more rebellion to crush. The rebellion just petered out. And so when they came in, they just took them, wiped them out, and left them there. And reinstilled order. And this is why we see doing the weave again. You thought that this no script thing was not going to pan out, and yet we're right back here to the beginning of our conversation. I am the master at doing the weave. So the the when they came back, they had to push out the old beliefs of these old gods and literally go and reinstill order. And how they did that was they realized that they couldn't just get rid of the idea of gods ruling them. In the beginning, according to the Sumerian text and other texts, we knew that these beings were extraterrestrials from another planet. We knew it right from the get go. They told us this. They said, no, we are not gods. We came from another planet. But then, after the rebellion, when they set themselves up as gods, it was so ingrained in our society and in our people's minds that when Enlil and his army came back to reestablish order and to take back control and all these things, they couldn't get the idea of gods out of them. They literally just saw them as new gods, as the new order or the old gods coming back, one or the other. Some cultures saw it as the old gods coming back, some cultures saw it as newer gods again. So they kept on going, but then they started to set themselves up as gods. But it wasn't the same. They weren't the same people. They weren't the same, literally weren't the same people. They didn't act the same. They weren't the same divine and commanding and brutal savagery. They didn't do all of that. So it wasn't the same. So then they decided, well, we have to go back to what worked in the beginning. And what worked in the beginning was the worship of the one God, Anu. Now, obviously, by this point, we've already stated that Anu is dead. Enlil is the one who's left, and he's the ruling god now. So Enlil is now in the death. And you know what's so interesting is you find a lot of these references also in Hindu Sanskrit and in their culture and in their mythologies, because there's Rama and Brahma are fighting against each other and trying to decide who's the most powerful god, and then suddenly Shiva appears and he's more powerful than them and says, no, I'm the most powerful god, and then they bow down to him. Well, what a great way to say that there's two equally opposing forces, two militaries that come in, and then suddenly an introduction of a third military force that's greater and larger and more powerful has come in. What happens then? Well, obviously, they are the greater god. I am the greater one because my military force is greater than you. My physical strength is greater than you. Well, physical strength may mean your physical muscles, but I can use that terminology and to say that this is the physical strength of my military. I don't have to be talking about physical strength of a person. I could be talking about the physical strength of whatever. And so, because it's doing the physical damage. So, or has the capability to do so, I should say. So, so they start introducing the one God rule again. There's only one God, one creator force, one being. And what did they do with the rebels? Well, if you read in the book of Enoch, it actually gives a very specific account of what happened to these rebels. In the book of Enoch, it specifically states that hell was an alternate dimension created by the Anunnaki to house the rebels in a perpetual prison forever. So They literally what had some sort of advanced technology to be able to create a pocket dimension that was basically a perpetual torture chamber. I mean, that's crazy to think about. What kind of technology do you have to do that? First of all, and this isn't even to argue for or against that being the truth of whatever the statement is. This is just what it says, and then we're thinking about what it says as if could it be reality or could it not? Is that's what we're trying to aim at, is the truth. But right now we're taking it on its face value and aiming for the truth. So, but what's so interesting about all of this, I think, is that these these gods, they literally continued on with their rebellion. And then in the book of Enoch, it continues to state that human beings cannot go to this hell. And it continues to state that Lucifer, the rebel leader, also known as Zeus, was not sent here. He was sent all alone to be imprisoned in a cage for 1,000 years, and then determined to walk the earth for all eternity, perpetually reincarnating on the earth and never being born and never being able to rise to the heavens again. Well, what does that mean? And how do they have the technology to be able to trap his soul here on the earth, where he just reincarnates forever? And then you're saying that there's reincarnation is existent forever. That is crazy. So you're getting in, which I'm a firm believer in reincarnation, but what they're saying in this book is that reincarnation exists. All these beings are able to reincarnate, and you can reincarnate as different beings. Is what it's saying. That sounds a lot like Hinduism to me. And yet you're having this written in the book of Enoch, which is the precursor to Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. I mean, it's even the precursor to the book of Abraham and the Torah and all those books. And so, it's to say that is just to show the level of technology that they have and the understanding about it. Another thing to consider is that how could he be? Is it 1,000 years in the sense of their planet or 1,000 years in the sense of our planet? Because how could Lucifer sit in a cage for 1,000 years? Think about that. He'd be a skeleton. So how could that be possible? Well, the answer is because he was one of the Anunnaki, and from his home planet, time is different. 1,000 years on Earth may be like 3 months to him. 1,000 years go by here on this planet, but in his home world, only like 3 or 4 months have gone by. And so it's only a 3 or 4 month prison sentence for him. I mean, it's not even, the real prison sentence is him being trapped here forever. Well, if you believe the ancient text that the heavens was really anything that was above what you could see past the clouds, and Lucifer was never allowed to go back into the heavens, maybe that's just a way to state that he was kicked out, exiled, never to come back to the home planet or to the spaceships. And later on in the stories, you would think, first of all, that that's the end of the story, right? Enki lost, the end of the war is over. Well, that's not the end of the story. First of all, 2 hours is not enough time to talk about this. I could go for 10 more days straight and just keep talking about it. But we got to cut it off after a while, and maybe we'll be able to do a part 2 and whatever, but like we do with some episodes. But the interesting part is that's not the end for Enki or Zeus or Lucifer. Not the end for him at all. In fact, what ends up happening is Enlil has another rebellion on his hands, this time on the home planet. And Enlil ends up losing and getting forced out into exile. And so what happens is these gods, the people, actually start thinking that maybe these rulers that we have are actually insane because they're too genetically similar. Remember, in the beginning of this episode, I started talking about how their genetics and how it could be possible that why they would want to mate with their sister would be, or half sister would be, because they wanted to pass on those genetic traits. But what if, like humans, it caused a mutation and that mutation made them literally insane in their brain? Maybe it didn't give them physical mutations, but maybe it made them mentally insane. And maybe Anu was like that, and they started to see the signs, and then finally Enlil was like the turning point for them. Maybe they realized Enlil was just so far gone. He was like in Rome's equivalent, he was like Nero, just totally far gone, totally out there, uh, totally out of society and whatever. Caligula's another one. That could be another reference because Nero actually did a lot of good things. And you have the story of Nero fiddling while the fire burned, but that actually wasn't true. There are accounts of Nero actually going out there with buckets himself and trying to put out the fire. The thing of why that story was warped is because later on, that whole fire district was then turned into his own personal palace, which later by the next ruler was torn down and turned into the Colosseum. So you have all these different things, but the thought is that they were insane. He could be insane. So what did they do? They called Enki back to the home world. But then the gods realized we can't just leave this planet with nobody in charge, and we can't just leave the rebels there either, because the same thing will happen. They'll just be gods and maintain above them. So, what are we going to do? We need impassive creatures who aren't going to get involved, aren't going to interact, are self sufficient, self maintaining, self healing androids. And maybe that's what the Greys are. Because it would be why they wouldn't want to interact with us. There has to be some sort of lesson learned on their part with interacting with us every day, because there has to be some sort of something going on that happened. Otherwise, they would still be out here talking to us. Who Zeus was wouldn't be a question of mythology or fact. Who Zeus was wouldn't even be a question of identity. You would know his first name, last name, his grandfather, his great grandfather, his great 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 grandfather. I mean, it would all be here. We would know all about it. He'd be coming down, and we'd be waiting for them like we do the celebrities. You'd be standing there, and it's the red carpet of the gods. I mean, it would be like that. But the problem is it's not like that. There has to be some sort of lesson learned. And I think the lesson learned was that you can't just go and do all these things. Maybe they finally figured out that you can't just go and just destroy everything as you go and for your own pleasure. Maybe that's what they figured out. I mean, I know, right? That sounds shocking that these gods who would be scientifically millions of years more advanced than us wouldn't be intelligent enough to realize that you can't just go and destroy everything for your own pleasure. You would think that, right? But think about our own humans. I think about yourself. How many times do you need to be told something that should have been so obvious to you? I mean, it happens all the time. I do it myself, to myself. Like, oh, gee, why didn't I think of that? I'm fucking stupid. I should have thought of this. I should have thought of that. You know, blah 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 blah. And so it's just it's an unbelievable, really it's just it's something had to happen, and whatever it was so irrevocable that they couldn't go back on it, that they couldn't go and change everything. They had to adapt their whole purpose to how they did everything. And they knew that they were going to be gone. For all we know is when Nibiru crosses again, or when the planet of the crossing, whatever it's actually called, comes close to us again in, almost another 1,000 years or whatever, we may get there and we may find that that planet is totally destroyed. It may be like another Mars, where the atmosphere is gone, where the planet is totally incapable of harboring life because it was destroyed. It froze over. It got too close to the sun and burned. A comet hit it, an asteroid hit it, something destroyed it, and the life no longer exists on that planet. And we may never know who the alien gods and the ancient gods really were. We may only ever have the myth. And sometimes that's all we got to do is believe in and find out the truth. Work through the myth to figure out the truth. I want to thank you all for joining me on this wonderful, wonderful day. I appreciate y'all so much. Remember to like, follow, subscribe on X for up to the minute news. Well, just like follow on X. I don't really care. I don't think you can even subscribe to me. But anyway, remember to like, follow whatever the platform is. I appreciate you. Up to the minute news on X, and you also get the notifications when we go live. All of that. Check out the website. Don't forget, new website updates are out right now. Newer ones are coming soon. WARRmultiverse.com. Don't forget. And listen, much love, y'all. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. We'll see you Thursday for games. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Peace, y'all.